Who's on their laptops and busy sending Slacks and emails as we speak? Yeah, there you go, good sir. You're the most dedicated one in the room. You get a badge. Welcome everybody. So nice to see so much energy in the room today and excitement. This is the first time the IAB Brand Council has hosted this roundtable in person. So it's really cool to see it in person. Who here has raised or has been to the online event before? Only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of you. Lovely. Who here knows what the IAB is? Raise your hand. Okay, just checking. All right, there are still some lowered hands. I'll explain in a bit. And the Brand Council, who knows what the Brand Council are? Cool. Who's got inroads into the Brand Council? Great. I'll explain all of that to you in a second. Before I do, you all would have received a couple of these, I think, or at least one of them per person. That's with you. No, you don't have to come up and dance up front here. It's not one of those events. But we do know that business cards are so last century, and some of you don't even know how to use your tap and share contact thing on your phones, because I know that is even hard to do for myself. So on this card is an opportunity for you to be able to write your details, and we want you to at least exchange it with at least one person. Okay, so your details can be going here. It's your name, company name, and your title, an email address, or a number. You can choose one or the other. And we want you to at least meet somebody today and exchange contacts with at least one other person in the room today. That's what the point of these cards are. Obviously, if you want more and you want to exchange more and you're a networker of note, please go ahead and get some more from the front desk. I'm sure there'll be some more for you. But at least one, try and meet one person new and share your contacts with them by the end of today. That's the joy and beauty of meeting in person as well. So my name is Danilo. I used to sit on one of the councils, one of the committees at the IAB, on the Influencer Marketing Committee, but I feel a bit out running a digital agency in front of a whole bunch of brands. But there are some other agency reps on the panel for today to come and talk more about what we have got unpacked today. It's all of the challenges that brands face in the 21st century, and I know that there are a lot of them to do with first-party data. So we've got some incredible speakers today, and I just want to quickly say thank you so much to MediaMark and Piperfy for bringing this together, particularly MediaMark for the venue today as well too. They've moved offices. If you guys haven't been to the new office, it's looking super beautiful. Hope you guys had some good snacks and didn't struggle getting here in the lifts and through the basement and then up the 4th floor. You found yourself here okay? Clearly. Good. Alrighty, we've got some incredible speakers lined up for you today. We're going to try and do this in the most collaborative way possible. There will be some food after the session itself, but basically we want to try and get as much content out the way as we can. As we recognize, you guys are obviously here for that and not only the snacks, although I'm sure some of you are here for snacks too. So I just wanted to talk you through some of the speakers that we've got lined up today, because the IAB, as the regulatory body in this country, obviously the IAB is a global body. IAB South Africa looks after, obviously, our territory, have a number of councils and committees that are made up of their members. And those members are brands, agencies, publishers, and otherwise, and they all get together to discuss some of the industry's biggest topical issues to be able to support the industry better. The Brand Council, therefore, has a number of brands and the teams who represent those brands on that council from all over the country, some of our biggest and most loved brands in country, and they come and discuss various topics to do with their industries and that brands are facing, in the hope that through sessions like today and otherwise, that knowledge can be shared with the broader marketing community and that we can be better digital and marketers as a whole. So that's what the IAB is about and what this council is for. And this roundtable is meant to be biannual. We will try and get it to biannual. At the moment, it's purely annual, an opportunity for us to be able to distill all the insights that come from these councils to the broader industry. We can't just be a clan of humans who sits in council talking to each other about the problems, only sharing our issues. We want to get it out to market. And that's what really this conversation is about today. So please do raise your hand, ask questions, meet the speakers afterwards. We're going to start with a panel. We'll then move into a sort of 3 keynotes that will be addressed by 3 of our speakers in front of me, and then we'll move on to another panel at the end, which will be your Q&A, a chance to ask any questions that you have. So please do engage, make this collaborative, and we'll take it from there. I'm going to start right at the beginning just by inviting the CEO of the IAB South Africa, Razia, to this stage to come and share a few words with you about the IAB's positioning and why this council matters and why you're all here today. So please, round of applause for Razia.
Hi, everyone. Is my mic working? Yes. Good. Glad that you all are here. Nice to see a full room. And I must say that you guys are amazing. Like the energy and dynamic personalities that come through the doors of the events that we see at the IAB. I'm like really super proud to be in your presence more than anything. And the reason why I think you guys are more amazing, other than your personalities, is the fact that you are actually here in this room, talking and being part of a conversation that is going to be mind-blowing when we go into the future, right? So you guys are clearly heavily invested in where you are at the moment in this industry and how you play a vital role in the changes that are coming up. So the IAB, as you know, we are 47 IABs around the world, which is great because we cover all aspects of a global phenomenon in the media and marketing environment. Obviously, IAB South Africa is a local chapter, and that allows us to index locally against global trends. So what makes that important for us, especially we do this through our councils and committees, is that we are able to try and identify through different various verticals of our councils and committees, from publishers to brands, agencies, platforms, all of it. We diversify the conversation, and then we find common denominators, and we try and identify which way we go forward from there. So that's the importance of IAB. And that's a navigation. That sign that we, IAB, is a navigation. We point you north. So, thanks. So, sorry, navigation got me off guard. So the idea, though, is that in 2022-ish, what the IAB has done is taken a long-term approach towards the challenges that we are facing in the industry. What we are stepping away from is being reactive to environments. Remember, when the internet came along, we were reacting. We're still reacting to SEO. We're still reacting to display, all of it. Stop. We need to stop. We are now moving forward into a world where we need to identify where we're going to be way in advance before it comes. So IAB is looking towards to the 2030 customer. That's what we are poised for. Our brand council, especially in this room today, is here to talk about one part of the challenges that ultimately comes towards the 2030 customer, right? And so when we look to collectively in this room, and that's why you all are important to be part of the IAB, every voice counts, every action counts, every thought pattern counts, because we need all of you to help take us forward. Okay, so it's not us, it's you guys that are important. So please make sure that you are active in the IAB and playing a very vital role. Every time an opportunity comes up, please make sure that you are there, front and center. And the most important thing is to be confident in what you are doing at the moment. That's why you guys are here in this room today, because you are invested in the changes that are going ahead. Okay, so our brand council, led by Audrey and Naidoo, I'm very proud that our council has taken steps, and we are inroads towards a great, I don't know what to say, great brand landscape. We've onboarded quite a few brands last year, like the Tiger brands and the PepsiCos and Rainmaker and all sorts are coming through, because it shows that the transformation between traditional and digital is there. We are at the forefront. And it puts IAB in the spotlight now, because IAB is the digital media and marketing industry body. So we are like front and center. And because of those changes, now you can see the speakers that will come up will help you identify where we are at this given time in the spotlight. So Audrey has onboarded a new brand council for the year, and it is filled with amazing brands. So we're very excited of what to expect from here onwards. And of course, as you can, well, I don't know, maybe brands are on top of the food chain, maybe they're in the middle. We don't quite know what is happening with all the changes coming along these days, but we'll see how it goes. Anyway, long story short, thank you for being here. We appreciate it. And this is my cell also. I'm using the opportunity to say that the Bookmark Award is coming up on the 15th of August in Johannesburg. So please make sure that you attend, because it's actually 7 or 8 times bigger than what is in this room or more. That's our flagship event, and that's where we celebrate digital excellence, so you can't miss it. And we are also partnering up with a lot of industry organizations, so if you want to partner up with us at the Bookmarks, it would be amazing, so speak to me afterwards. Otherwise, enjoy, and there are drinks afterwards, by the way.
Thank you, Razia. I forgot to mention at the beginning, by the way, that just by signing up for this event, there are film crews running around. You might be captured in, so no nose picking. I've heard Joburgers love to do that. I'm not too sure. We're from Cape Town. We have to state it up front, you know what I mean? So we can be hated later on and then known. Work on your feelings, please, people. Thank you. So yeah, just a note that the camera crew is roaming around. If you don't want yourself to be in any of the footage afterwards, just please go and find the team afterwards and just let them know that you're not comfortable, but hopefully they will capture your best side. Hopefully it's always that side, because they're on that side of the room. Right, let's get started. We're going to start with the panel discussion today. I'd like to call up 3 members of the IAB Brand Council up onto stage, just as an opportunity for us to crack open our big, hefty topic that we have on screen today. So please can we give a warm round of applause to Dr. Audrey Naidoo, Council Lead. Fari Singh from Thai Auto Investments. Loyiso Ngongo from MTN, welcome. I'll stand this side where there's an empty chair. So the 3 of you are going to have to help us crack open the topic. You all sit in the council, you talk to each other, you share your ideas from your problems, but the rest of us want to know sort of what comes out of the discussion. So I'm going to give each of you a chance to answer from your perspectives, from your unique business points of view, but we'll start with the council chair's point of view. So Audrey, just a quick note from you about the challenges that brands are facing in the 21st century as it regards media and marketing, and how you guys have discovered this through the council.
Thank you, Danilo. Good afternoon, everybody, and it's good to see some familiar faces in the crowd and some new people that I've been engaging with virtually but got a chance to meet you today in person. So I think, the Brand Council has been very active to address some of the core challenges we're facing as a collective brand in South Africa. I think, third-party cookies has been the cornerstone of advertising for the last 24 years. And as we pivot to a new era of digital marketing and a new generation of marketers, there's a lot on the table in terms of dynamics and the changes we're seeing in the industry from a tech stack. I mean, I was looking at the data in terms of how big the MarTech stack is, and there's like 14,000 opportunities or solutions on the table for marketers to choose from. So it becomes very complex in terms of the environment we're operating, and it doesn't matter if we are large corporate, cross-verticals, irrespective of that, we're seeing that it's difficult for marketers to make informed decisions. So I think that is the biggest challenge, is that there's so many choices to be made from a tech stack, from data, from analytics, and I think what I'm seeing is that the pivot is moving from your general traditional marketing into much more complex capability building. So yeah, I'm referring to capabilities in terms of technical skill sets. And we had this conversation in our last Brand Council. Our media agencies, our creative agencies, our partners actually equipped with the right skill set to take brands forward. And then the question around, has there been more control put into our partner space versus the brand space? So you're seeing brands now having the right conversations around data and control of data. Unfortunately, what it's done is put a gap in the brand space in terms of being technically astute to have the right conversations. So we're talking about horizontal integration, right? Previously, I come from a financial services institute. Previously, a lot of the control and onus when we start to talk about data used to sit with the CIO office. You find data conversations, CTO office when you start to to look at tech stack, and then the CIO offices, so that horizontal integration becomes key. Sorry, I'm just talking generically in terms of some of the challenges that we are facing as a collective brand. So what we're seeing is when you start to engage at a C-suite level, that there's a loss of translation. So I'm talking about a common language of marketing across the board, both internally within the organization, but then also with our external partners. And which is why large corporates like us have a lot of dependency on external consultants to solve some of our business challenges. And you're also going to find a gap, because if you're not close to the business challenges and goals that you set out to, you can't actually drive things like performance marketing. You're going to fail fast, right? If you go in campaign mode, you have a sense of short-termism. What does short-termism do for you? It's actually not impactful and sustainable in the long term. So we need to actually rethink, pivot towards what are some of the solutions. And I don't think that the solutions lie just in the brand space. I think it's a collective. So, which is why we wanted to have the conversation today to address some of those issues, you know. I mean, I was looking at the latest Salesforce, the State of Marketing report, and it says that only 27% of South African marketers use unified data. Now, we don't have an issue with data sources. We have an abundance of data available to us as marketers. But is data a utility for us? And the short answer to that is no. So my question to you is, how do we democratize data in a way that it's usable, that it becomes a utility rather than a liability? And how do marketers start speaking a common language across the board when we speak to our partners, when we speak to the C-suite, and when we speak to our colleagues across the organization? The second thing that we're finding is data privacy. When you talk about risk, compliance, legal teams, there is a gap in terms of loss in translation. So because marketing is becoming highly technical, it's difficult for us to actually start conversing. I mean, if I speak to the crowd, I mean, how many of us know what's CAPI? I mean, just with a show of hands. Okay, very few of us, right? So conversion APIs, if you want to drive growth and performance, you need to start building those advanced tools that will allow you to drive growth at a quicker pace, because the expectation and the targets are unrealistic to each business unit. And all of you can actually attest to the fact when you're having conversation with senior marketers, the first thing you say, are we going to meet our targets? And if you're not, what value are you bringing, and why should we invest in your platform? So a lot of the publishers do come to us to say, oh, we need to increase your investment. And one of the things I always say is, sorry, what is your value that you're bringing back to the table? So it's about that value exchange. So value exchange when it comes to growth, value exchange when it comes to investment, because there's always a budget deficiency. And how do we actually optimize the budgets that we have available? So I can say that the number of challenges are vast and multi-dimensional, but I think as a collective, if we can come back with ideas, and I think this is where creative solutioning come into play, is how do we actually be more creative and think outside the box in terms of offering solutions to these challenges that we are facing.
Thank you very, very much. Yeah, very, very useful insights. And I just want to clarify one point, is that today we're not going to get a step-by-step guide on how to solve all of our problems uniquely. Today we're opening up a conversation about all the potential problems and those solutions, in the hope that through the conversation you find your way through the sort of noise into the future. We do recognize that there's a lot of changing happening in our world rapidly, and nobody in this room knows what our future is going to look like. And in order for us to be able to keep up, we need to keep learning. Just stay close to the conversation as best as possible. And so today is that conversation. So where we don't answer your question directly, or you think there's someone smarter in the room than you, it's not true. Nobody knows what's going on or how to solve it. Today we're going to start at least inroads into some of the questions that we can answer today. So please do keep your questions open, and let's try and solve those problems together. Fari, from your perspective, you want to tell us a bit more about like how you guys are experiencing in Thai Auto sort of the challenges that you face as brand in this digital marketing landscape?
Sure. Just to give everybody some context, so Thai Auto Investments is an automotive company, and we have a retail business, a wholesale business, and subsidiary businesses as well. So when I look at it, I'm looking at various different sizes of business. And purely from the retail aspect, we have a very big brand, a very loved South African brand, Tiger Wheel and Tire, which is a very established, over 55 years old brand. And then we have a baby brand called Tires and More, very similar in its offering, but much younger, different levels of budget, so different levels of investment as well. So in that, it's quite important to understand what are the different solutions that we're going to look at implementing for really big businesses, medium-sized businesses, and small-sized businesses as well, which is something I think we need to tackle as a collective. I've got to mention, obviously, what's quite important for us, especially as retailers, pure retailers, is looking at attribution and measurement. And how do we actually define that going forward? How is this going to change? And then how do we communicate that? And Audrey was speaking to the language of marketing changing. How do I communicate that to my colleagues on an exco level? How do we bring them along on this journey where things are changing in our industry? Because ultimately, we're going to start talking investment and investment into different tech stacks, and how do we bring them along and to prove exactly the value that we're going to be deriving for the business. When I joined Tire Auto Investments, I had already discovered that through many years they had invested quite heavily in terms of their customer data solutions, the integrity of the customer, and really augmenting this. And as a business, we're always constantly on a journey to unify our customer data and have a single view of our customer in order to serve them better from a customer experience perspective. And what's quite important to us as a group is that customer centricity and customer experience, especially in a safety critical environment, is really important to us. We really want to add value. So it begs the question, how then do we start unifying the data that we've collected over the years into a single solution that is in a usable format that then translates into better service via our CRM systems, CDP systems as well? So how do we work with our agencies, our media agencies, as well as our developers to really create a system that's quite robust and allows us to serve our customers adequately? At the same time, we then have to look at the different investments that are required and the quantum that's required to actually deliver these solutions to business. And ultimately, at an exco level or at a C-suite level, we then have to demonstrate the value that it's going to derive to business. Are we getting the same gains? Are we getting superior gains? And then are we able to then deliver on our business goals based on these various investments? And it's definitely a new territory for us, and hoping to get some great answers from today's speakers.
Good, I'm glad. Very quick question before we move on to Luis, or just a note for, if we can try and summarize it into a sentence, I don't know how, but at least like a note for the difference between the challenges faced by the small business versus the larger business. Like, what are the differences in first-party data?
So in terms of our systems as a business, we do collect them in pretty much the same way, but obviously the volume is very different from a big chain like Tiger Wheel and Tire versus Tires and More. Then how do we really augment that and extend our reach to make our digital advertising quite effective? Obviously, we rely very heavily in smaller businesses on digital marketing, and how do we really then extend that so that we get the value back?
And are you guys struggling differently in the businesses to manage data? Like, are tools too expensive for the small businesses to build the stacks?
Yeah, so obviously I have different budgets that work across the different businesses that we have, and in order to justify that, we've got to be able to demonstrate that financial return back to business. So I'm also keen to look at different solutions that are fit for purpose or fit for the size of business as well.
Fabulous. Thank you, Fari. Loisa, you last from MTN side as well too. Obviously, large customer base all over the continent. Will you talk us through what some of the biggest challenges you're facing as brand when it comes to digital marketing and first-party data?
Okay, cool. Thanks for that, Danilo. I mean, I have to echo Audrey's sentiments around the use of data, into our marketing strategies. With the product that I'm working on, I work on fintech, and it's across Africa. So what we're struggling with is like centralization of like data into the business. So getting that data and making sense of it is quite difficult. So we never make decisions based on first-party data, but we then go and assume that this is what the customer looks like in the digital interface, and then this is how we're going to target. And then we're making assumptions. And I think this also comes from a perspective that there is still a lack of skills in terms of like digital analysis and making like business insights from that data, because the skills are not there in the business, and the business sees data per opco as a function that sits in that country, and then we, being the digital marketing function that sits at center, do not have the leverage or the ability to go into those opcos and use data. So access to data and getting the trust and socializing the digital marketing function to the exco in different markets is a bit of a challenge, and I think we need to actually acquire the skills in terms of how do we put digital marketing out there and socialize the benefit of using first-party data, because with the fintech product that we have, personalization is very key, because we're trying to increase monthly active users on our products, and you're not going to go with one-dimensional message to your base, and you have to actually tailor messages based on customer behaviors and making sure that your offering is tailored to that specific individual, and we're not doing that. So even with the content that you're creating, it's created for all customers as one customer, and I think, yeah, the training is very important, and us getting access to data and democratizing the data in the business is key.
So, question on that: is the biggest challenge of democratizing data and centralizing it, etc., an exco problem? Like, is there a struggle from a buy-in? Is marketing needs to step back and hold on a second while ops deals with the real big boy stuff, or is there some other reason that we're struggling to do that? Is it just the processes, the tech doesn't build it? Like, what's your?
Yeah, I think it's an exco problem first, and then also the opcos, because the regulations are different per market. So we need to adapt and understand what each opco or what each market stands for when it comes to access to first-party data. And that is a first block, and then the people in the organization, them understanding that data can be used to actually yield greater benefits for the product or solutions.
Great. Just by raise of hand, anything in here from what any of our three speakers have said resonates with what you're going through? Cool. I got nods, but no raise of hands, but fine, I'll take nods. It's okay, thank you. Alrighty, good. Good to know. Another raise of hand, please. Raise of hand, not a nod. Just if anybody feels like they can accurately define first-party data. Who can accurately define first-party data in this room?
It's a good one.
I stressed you all out about the question. So Audrey, could I ask you to please, just for the sake of this conversation, it's very central around first-party data, and we're using big words and technology here. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page about what we're actually talking about. What is first-party data?
So simply put, first-party data is all data that the brand owns across platforms. So it could be anything. It's your CRM data, it's your website data, it's your app data. So even first-party data has many dimensions to it.
Because I understood first-party data was data directly provided by the customer with consent. It's like you've got asked them for questions.
That is zero-party data.
Okay, zero-party data. Love it. Cool. Learning new things today. Love it. Are we clear about what first-party data is? You all learned something with me. Don't act like you didn't. Thank you. Good stuff. Round of applause, please, for our IAB Council today. Thank you very, very much, Brand Council. Thank you. You can breathe and drink some water. Right, we've got three keynotes coming up next from three different perspectives to come and share with you. We're obviously discussing a very, very important topic today, loads of different challenges and ideas. And like I said, this is a conversation that's just opening up the floor to the conversation. It's not a solution in the end, but I'm sure you'll take at least a step closer towards your own unique solutions in your businesses. So please, ladies and gents, welcome our first speaker, Richard Clogg, who's joining us up on stage. He's going to be speaking on trends on how the digital landscape, trends on the digital landscape and how to use data and how that is all shifting in our world. He's the principal consultant at Acceleration, a data and technology consultancy operated globally by the leading media company Group M, who's owned by WPP. Please give him a round of applause, ladies and gents. Good luck, Richard.
Thank you. I've been told I've only got 10 minutes, otherwise I get into trouble.
My time is on.
Yeah, I'm starting my timer too. So yeah, I think it's a massive topic. We've at a pivotal point, but we've been in these pivotal points before. And I think that's the first thing I want to do is kind of just take a look back and realize that it's not just the last 20 years. Essentially, the last over 100 years, the percentage of advertising spend has remained fairly constant, between 1 and 1.5% of GDP. Obviously, things like world wars and things didn't help, but otherwise, it stayed fairly consistent. And what that means is there's always been the same amount of money being pushed into advertising. The difference is where we had these step changes. So obviously with the internet similar to like what we feel now with this big change, there was a huge step change. But the bottom line is the money's there. It's just where's it going to go and how are we going to use it. So everyone knows the evolution of advertising, but I think it's important to understand that ultimately we had all these step changes. We had the printing press where there was very little reach, very little inventory. We then got broadcast, which obviously gave us more reach, not much inventory, but obviously more reach. And then we started the internet era, and that was obviously a huge change. That changed everything. Suddenly we had infinite reach, we had infinite inventory, we could reach everyone, and we could find anything. So that was really good, and one of the most important things we were told is we can measure it now. And we believed that, and we thought, okay, now this is great, so we're going to just put all our money into this. So that's kind of where the industry went. The problem is with the open web is it's open. And so the data started flowing everywhere, and nefarious actors in the chain started stealing data and doing things, and ultimately created this poor quality environment for us. So then some environments, some platforms, etc., started saying, oh, hang on, I don't want to share my data. I also want to hold onto my data. It's more important. The smartphone obviously arrived, apps and browser, etc. And this was really starting to try and control this open web. Third-party cookies really were the key thing that was fighting against the sort of data sharing. Third-party cookies allowed the sharing of data. And the last sort of, I would say, 8 years, driven primarily out of the EU, etc., is things like regulation changes, GDPR. They started thinking about the consumer needed their own rights and wanted the consumer to know and have consent about what data is being used, etc. So something like a third-party cookie is very hard to track, and so this became a bit of an issue. The platforms invested and doubled down on their environments. They themselves wanted to own the data. They didn't want to share it. Facebook bought an ad platform and shuttered it about a year or two later. They realized they would rather keep all the data internally. Then technology changes like Apple. We all know this stuff, ITV, etc., ITP. But Apple was saying, well, we want our customers to trust our platform. Privacy is, a strategy tax for us. We want them to consent, and we want to keep all the data ourselves. So they locked down the browser. They locked down the way you consented on the app. This made tracking much harder. This made measurement much harder. But we kept going because the web was still fairly open. And then everyone realized this third-party cookie thing had to end, and Google obviously spearheaded that and said, we're going to get rid of third-party cookies, and everyone started panicking. And then something else happened, which was called AI, which we don't really know what that means yet, but we have ideas. So to your point earlier, we don't know the future, but we know what it's going to involve. So is it the end of the open web? I think to a certain extent it is. I think the days of data sharing, the days of third-party cookies, just in terms of consent, this is the new normal. We have to have the relationship with our consumers and our advertisers. So this is actually quite an impactful statement. This is the co-founder of Microsoft, who's only in his lifetime saw 2 demonstrations of technology that struck him as revolutionary. The GUI, which is the graphical user interface for us old people, and ChatGPT. Now, for a co-founder of Microsoft to say that, it means a pretty big deal. So how does that fit into our strategy and into the future? So John Wanamaker, over 100 years ago, he had this issue. Now, this hasn't changed. So I think the important thing to say here is we haven't changed anything. All we did was we said, oh, we've got this new thing we can track, therefore we know the whole thing. Well, actually, it hasn't really changed. We still don't know half of it. And in fact, this kind of led the industry down a path. I know there's a brand council, but from a performance marketing perspective, it led us more down a performance marketing channel. And it was just easier, and we became lazy, because it's easier just to run a report and say this and that, rather than actually do the hard work and do the extensive modeling. This is the Nielsen reports just come out, and basically what they found is things are misaligned. Your overall KPIs and long-term ROI, goals are different, are sort of long-term, but 70% plan to prioritize performance marketing. Again, that's the trap again. We can measure it, so let's do that. Digital dominance in terms of putting a lot of money behind digital. Look, everything's becoming digital now, but the point is it skews everything because you're only measuring a certain part of it. And that's been one of the major issues. And then obviously measurement confidence is high, but incomplete. Really what they're saying is, we got these nice measurement techniques here in platform, maybe across some platform, but we don't have the whole picture. And we got a huge budget we're spending, but we really don't know that half, that John Wanamaker 50%, right? So we really need to focus on 3 pillars. They're quite simple, but this is where the future in terms of where we're going to be focusing, right? So first of all, future-proofing your measurement. How do we now measure in a cookieless world? And to be honest, it's kind of that ship has sailed, right? Because as much as the sunset is happening or the end of cookies is next year or whenever it is now, it doesn't matter. The techniques have to start now. We have to start the way to change the way we think. Privacy management, again, how do we get consent? How do we protect our users? And then lastly, audiences. How do we reach our audiences? In what ways can we reach them in what different ways? So from a measurement perspective, there are certain techniques that are now in place by platforms like Google. Audrey mentioned CAPI, which is Conversion API. Enhanced conversions, which is the Google version. Things like server-side tagging. These are all like tech terms, but what these are the mechanisms that the platforms are introducing so we can continue measuring the way we used to a certain extent. It's never going to be the same. But what it is, it's saying we want to have that first-party relationship with our consumers, and if we get that trust and if we get that consent, we can actually do this. Multimodal modeling, it's a bit of a mouthful. Media mix modeling is one of them, and obviously media mix modeling has been around forever, but it went out of fashion because we could now measure everything. And so it's had a resurgence because now we're going to start using it again and putting a lot of data across everything to start understanding the impact more. But what's really nice as well is we've got much better technology now. AI and machine learning is obviously a lot better than it was even a few years ago. MMM does certain things well, it doesn't do everything. It's not a silver bullet. Regression-based attribution is really looking more at that digital level as your attribution. Again, does that stuff really well? And from a first-party perspective, that's how we should do it, but it's not a silver bullet. And then things like incrementality testing and geo-testing. These are all great tools. The bad news is not one tool that does it all. The good news is we can make this all work together by triangulating this. And this is, we think, where the big impact of AI is going to come for us, not just the creative stuff and all that. This is from a data perspective, is a lot of clients get all the data, and they do all this, and they say, great, we got it, and they say, well, we don't know what to do with it now. And we don't actually know what to do with this stuff. So you can, even if you collect first-party data, even if you have a unified data set, that's just your foundational stuff. There's a whole lot of other stuff to do. So this triangulation is kind of like the way we see the future. A lot of the MMM-type companies, especially in the US, are investing in this and trying to use AI to put the data together to tell us what does this mean. Because humans just are not geared enough. It's too much data. So we need AI and other machine learning techniques to see that. How am I doing on time? Okay. Secondly, is that consent. I mean, it's amazing that this is one of the main pillars. Five years ago, we wouldn't have really even mentioned this. And it's really been driven from the EU. And certain things like DMA haven't really come in here yet, but it's coming. You can't build your system based on things that are going to come later. It's like leaded petrol going out and unleaded coming in saying, well, I'm just going to, keep my leaded car forever. It's going to happen. It's happening. The shift is happening. And advertisers won't be able to engage or measure traffic if consent is not granted. And this is very much a DMA thing, but it'll come down here. It's there. Google has built the scaffolding around that, so we can do it. Consent platforms, again, this is something that's sprung up, obviously, because of this whole privacy paradigm. And essentially, consent management platforms is a tool to help you manage that. Because it's just too much to deal with the changes. So rather get a platform that can do the changes. And this just fits in nicely with your strategy. And when I say consent management platforms, I'm not just talking about on your website. I'm talking about everywhere. I'm talking about walking into a dealership. I'm talking about walking into a branch, anywhere. You want consent from a customer, and then once you have that all around, then you can start to really do things properly, not just from an online perspective. And then building a trusted audience, again, once you have that consent, and you have that sort of multi-channel consent strategy, then you can start building it up. The reality is we are starting from scratch a little bit, but we have to do it. We can't sort of hope it goes away. And then lastly, just audience. Sorry, that's kind of gone a bit formatting out. But first-party data, I mean, we've heard this and heard this and heard this, but it is so key. The key thing about it is actually not just building that data set and unifying it. It's how do you get that data? You know, there's a lot of publishers that are under a lot of stress now because they don't have that first-party relationship. They've heavily relied on, obviously, media or advertising. The model is changing now, so you need to change the way you operate. You need to encourage logins. You need to have a value exchange. And that's kind of the way, I mean, New York Times makes more money now from the games subscriptions than its actual content. You know, you have to evolve. And essentially building that up and then using things like privacy-safe clean rooms. We've heard about clean rooms, but there's actual privacy-safe ones that respect consent and privacy and have it sort of in the cloud and not on devices. CDPs, etc. All these things that we've known a lot about for a while. And then the second thing is walled gardens. I kind of mentioned walled gardens before, but they've become such an important part of the data ownership and the relationship with media and consumers because they want to own that relationship. And basically, almost everything is a walled garden now and will become a walled garden. And there'll be many walled gardens. You know, a publisher can create a mini walled garden. So these are all things that are being generated, and ultimately, that's how we're gonna operate. And that walled garden contains first-party identity solutions, and it makes them more efficient. And it has better, you know, advertising quality and inventory because it's controlled. It's not the Wild West, right? Oh, cool, because I'm almost done. And the last one, there's just new channels. I think this is something that people are often scared about. And again, this is not, we don't have to use new channels, but we can experiment and we can try them. Some of these things are like retail media. I mean, I've seen retail media be a buzzword in the US for quite a while now, but it's really only coming in here. You know, that's saying everything's an ad network, or everything is becoming an ad network. And if you're a FMCG, then you go to a retail media platform that's maybe selling your products. You have to diversify and think about these other channels. And then even things like connected TV, Netflix announced last week, they're building their own platform, opening it up to Google, etc., as a DSP. So it's all, and that's going to be the massive first-party relationship. And then obviously digital out of home has come a lot further. You can do a lot more with it. So, yeah, that's it. Thanks. What is that, 11?
Thank you, Richard. I don't know.
12.
It was probably about 40, but it's fine. It's very useful stuff there. Thank you very, very much. I love how I'm also the chair guy. You didn't miss much. I promise all the data was on the slide. It was there in the one corner. Where
Okay, yeah. My joke thing didn't come up, so that's fine.
Yeah, that didn't, unfortunately. We missed the memes.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. I think what's also really interesting is like which marketers here struggle with budget every year, always. It's so interesting how we don't get enough budget for things like this, but the world has become so much more complex, and what we have to do with data and cross-collaboration, etc., becomes a real issue. And so I think it's really, really important that as brands, we are speaking about how we segment these budgets out of the, oh no, you're the fun creatives in marketing, to like, oh my God, we're now like full-on data specialists and scientists and POPI compliance, legal experts as well, and how to like work all of that into our plans. So thank you, Richard. Very, very cool insights. Next up on our speaker list, I'm very excited to welcome Alexi. Nice to have him with us here today. Alexi Vontas is going to speak on data integration and the use of ad tech and martech. He's the CEO of Coppertable, performance digital marketing agency, and has 16 years of experience. He says he started in marketing before we could buy Google ads, so he's been around a while.
Long before that.
Over to you, Alexi.
Okay, great. Guys, thanks for having me. Great pleasure to be here today. I'm Alexi. Next slide. Okay, so what I'm going to be talking to you about today is not necessarily what integrations are. I think everyone's very familiar with the concept of integrating a platform with another platform and why that's important. I think what I want to take you through today is just really pertaining to the ad tech and martech that all of us use on a regular basis. We generally spend our ad dollars on very few channels, the ones that we know work best for us. And I think the concept around first-party data pushes us into a place where we ask ourselves, how much better can it be? How much increased performance can we see by using things like first-party data to enrich our activity? And I think the truth of the matter is, as Richard said earlier, we've been relaxed and kind of reliant on technology that was being used for longer than it should have, when actually first-party data has been around forever as well. I mean, since someone could enter their email address into a form. So I just wanted to ask, there's a few statements I'm going to put on the screen now. I just wanted to check, you guys should please just have a look at whether you get any of these questions fired at you on a daily basis or whether you are one of these people. But really, a few of them being, my customer data sits in so many different places. I deal with clients on a regular basis where they've got performance data sitting here, web analytics sitting here, and app data sitting here. And yes, you've got a common property across all of those platforms in an email address or in an ID number, but the dynamics of what that person does on a different platform should be shared with all your platforms, and it speaks to the central unified data that the other guys have touched on. How can I better predict my consumers or my customers' behavior? How can we attribute between digital and in-store activity? I think we all, again, we've been using certain platforms. They deliver direct revenue and direct results at a certain level, and we assume that there's, as you said, there's a half of it that's not really delivering for us, and we don't know which half it is. But how can we show that someone was stimulated by an ad in this channel and took out their wallet in another? This is an interesting one. I'm concerned we over-advertise our audience or over-advertise to our audience. The sense of you've got reach and frequency in certain channels, reaching your maximum size market, but how often do you reach them across all of those channels in combination? Things like that are very difficult to understand if you don't have that central source of information. And CDPs are, customer data platforms that the team spoke about earlier, are a way of doing that. CDPs in general, and we'll talk about them just now, are very technically heavy platforms to utilize. And as we discussed, our market here in South Africa is a very different one to the European and the US markets, where the resources are abundant and I guess there's investment behind those. We need to be more personalized with our message. Everyone's heard that a million times this month. Why are our conversion rates not higher? I mean, again, digital. We've been doing this for years now. Why have we not seen conversion rates get better and better and better? And I think the concept around first-party data and unified data not being utilized to the extent that we should have by now is the reason why we've seen investments, they're fairly flat over time, not necessarily since before digital, but you saw Richard's graph around the red growth. Naturally, that's where brands are going to gravitate. When the first-party data advent becomes commonplace, and when all the ad platforms and digital platforms and CRM platforms make it accessible for the end user to use, I think then we're going to really grow as an industry and as brands. The last one here, we have loads of data, but no insights. And I think this is something that I hear very often. You've got all the metrics at your disposal. You can put together dashboards that blend metrics together across platform. But it's the insight that you're after that is going to take you from a 5% conversion rate to a 7% conversion rate. And as the team spoke about earlier, it's a matter of human beings not having the cognitive capability to get past a certain layer of insight. And I think that's what machine learning really is there to do, is it's there to look out for a trend where ice cream sales are skyrocketing, and machine learning telling us that we must watch out for murder rates going up. Those two crazy instances marry at some point, and that's what AI does really well that humans cannot do. So what does an integrated system look like? And I guess earlier I asked the question, have you guys heard any of those questions recently? You should have. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands. But on the flip side, what does an integrated ecosystem look like? It's quite small, so I'm just going to read it out. So the example you're all well aware of. What is first-party data useful for? It's useful to remind a customer that last year they did this and now they need to do the same thing this year. So example, a dentist reminding you it's been a year since your last visit. But we want to take it to the next level. We want to use our data across platforms to give an experience that wows the consumer and that really helps us shift that needle that we were speaking about earlier. So things like displaying the next video in a sequence of sequential videos after a person takes an action in a different channel. So not, you saw my YouTube video, great, tick, now you're going to see the next one. We need to get to a place where the user consumed my YouTube video telling me the most 10 important things about my product that I'm selling. The fact that they came to my website and took another action means I need to inform these other channels so that the sequence can continue. Attributing a conversion value to a Google display click as an example after a later in-store purchase. So we talk about the attribution between digital and offline. That can only be achieved if you've got two systems that are speaking to one another. I mean, we get that. Triggering a WhatsApp to a customer the moment they purchase a product with a partner. So this is quite interesting. Guys, these are really just things for you to scratch at. Think about your businesses and your agencies and really just to think outside the box a little bit. And what I mean there is, if in the traditional sense, we've got a whole lot of customer data in our databases and we activate against changes on that data. Person comes to our site and does something, or they open an email but didn't click, or they downloaded our app. And what I'd like you to scratch at there is, which brands can you partner with from a data perspective that aren't logical fits for your brand? So in the automotive space, you might want to partner with an insurance company, or in the financial space, you might want to partner with strange thing to not be able to flick off the tongue, but there's partnerships that are logical and there's partnerships that are strategic based on how close the activity is of that consumer. So it may be completely outside of your industry, it may be completely outside of digital completely, but the fact that there's data being collected by someone that you can forge a partnership with means that there's enrichment that can happen. And I think that's something also important for you guys to also consider is, we all think about first-party data as an email address, a name, a cell phone number, and actually what we must think about data, we must reframe that for ourselves, because data is things like changes in a status. So if I purchase a certain number of products, maybe I become a VIP. That is enrichment of data, and it is data as well. It's also time frames. How long has it been since something happened? That's a trigger for something, and it's a data point. So not to harp on too much there. I think a digital integrated ecosystem really allows you to report on weighted performance value across the business. And I'm not talking across channels in marketing or across similar functions and comparing the value and optimizing the spend. I'm talking about reporting on business metrics across the entire organization and having a sense of this metric changed on this channel, what did that do for metrics down the purchase stream? So this is an example, offering a customer 20% discount to extend their subscription with you if they haven't logged in for a month. So these are just examples showing you that we're not trying to get clever with the experience in one channel. We're trying to take activities that happen across channels and merge them together for a trigger to be met. Okay, so we've gone through that. Predict a customer is about to consider moving to a competitor and offer them something enticing to stop them from churning. A call center, this is an interesting one as well, and I think this is where a lot of service-orientated businesses need to get to or are trying to get to quickly, is a call center agent picking up the phone, receiving a call in from a consumer, and that call center agent having a screen with the last 2 weeks of activity, from whether that user searched something to get to your website, whether they then left and went to a store and purchased something there, and if they came back and watched a video on Facebook, for instance. CRM platforms and platforms that are baked in with CDP functionality allow you to do things like that. And really, if you think about that, if you've got a call center, it's not good enough for a person just to be picking up a phone and helping that person. Having the context of how they can achieve the objective of the business, even though that person might be phoning in with something negative to say, I think is extremely valuable for larger corporates. Okay, and then this is completely on the other side of things as well. So aside from how an integrated ecosystem is important to the brand from an internal perspective, externally, brands are, and financial institutions have always been very good at this over the last while, but other brands are catching up, and I'll give you a few examples. But brands can offer API functionality or interface for other brands to partner with us on. So we've spoken about the case where we would partner with brands to get access to some of their data and would, enrich that within our BigQuery instance or wherever that may be. We then have the ability to turn around and go strategically, who could benefit from this newly packaged present that I now hold? And that's something that brands need to be thinking about as well. Lastly, I gave this example. It would be interesting to be able to label a customer a VIP after the third purchase they make, for instance, within the 6-month period, and then adding them to a nurture process, automated process that they receive a few nurture emails and WhatsApps over a period of time. All right, well, I will ask you to put your hands up. How many of you feel like you guys are in a place where either your agency, your brand that you work with or for, or the company you own are in a place where we kind of ticking most of the boxes that we've spoken about there? And I don't think I'm going to see a lot, but if I do, I'm going to hire you. Okay. All right, great. So, guys, I didn't think we would get a lot of hands there. Oscar Music, right. So this is actually where the bulk of the information and value is. So let me move along. No, there's 7 important things I want to leave you with. So this is, as we said, let's just go back. Okay, so this is complicated, it's technical, it's long-term. This kind of stuff does not get achieved overnight, but it pays you to start somewhere. And as I say, the starting point is the end. It doesn't pay us anymore. Richard spoke about the fact that you need to be developing systems and integrations with the platforms that mean things to your business, that are important to the business. You need to be planning 3 years ahead. I think the knee-jerk reaction that our industry is in at the moment is very much in the CAPI space, and that's just because it's new. People are scrambling to get that done as quickly as possible, but they're looking at a very short horizon. They're looking at December, and what we should be looking at is, great, we know CAPI is required, but long-term, how does CAPI actually fit into the rest of the important technology we use? Simplify your technology stack. Okay. This is a difficult conversation to have with people that have just shelled out 5 million rand plus for technology over the last couple of years. But if you think about it, simplifying your tech stack to a point where you only have what you require, what the business requires. A lot of businesses purchase the best of breed technology so that they should be able to deliver the best of breed. I've seen it quite a lot where a person rationalizes with the business over time, achieves that goal, and gets something sold into the business only for them to not be able to implement it correctly, and it gathers dust, and no one wants to get rid of it because it costs 5 million rand. I think make difficult decisions with your current tech stack because it's costing you more than you think. All right, this is a big one. Decide where your golden record lives. We spoke about the fact that multiple platforms have a record of your customer, but none of them in isolation have all of that information. And it speaks to the CDPs, it speaks to data lakes and things like that, where in order for you to enrich a record, that record needs to be primary somewhere. And the only way we're going to get to that space is if we do move into that enterprise level data storage and modeling space. Create data enrichment partnerships. We've spoken about this. I think the more you find strategic partnerships to improve, inform, enrich how we communicate with our customer, I think that's low-hanging fruit. There's POPI, yes, there's regulations around how you can use your customer data. There's clever lawyers out there that can help you and your brands get into a space where you understand exactly what you should or shouldn't be doing with that data. Guys, an important point for me, everything is integrable. I looked up that word. Yes, it is a word. I thought it was integratable. No, it's integrable. So where technology isn't natively integrable, explore integration software. I've never had a solution where I've had two pieces of technology, some as bad as almost DOS-based platforms, where we were able to integrate it with newer gen technology. So if you can't do it, there's a platform out there that will help you do that. I can give you examples of that after the meeting, if you guys after the presentation. Guys, go out there and buy CRM shares today, because if first-party data is everything moving forward, and I think the case of us relying on third-party cookies to the extent that we have over the past while makes us ponder whether we should be actually depending on third-party software and third-party integration software. Again, it's a balancing act. Fari spoke about the fact that larger corporates have budgets to do things like this, to employ data scientists, to mine that data and put models together and A/B test those models. Smaller businesses don't. So, moving forward, we need to see decide how much we rely on third-party platforms altogether. Lastly, grow data competencies internally. I think while we spoke earlier about the fact that agencies and partners and consultancies can help you go fast and quick, it's an expensive way to manage your own data. Also, I think the bottom line being having someone internally that understands the business intelligence is going to help your partners deliver solutions that will be more meaningful. Guys, those are my nuggets of advice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alexi. I feel bad for all of our speakers. They were like bad-mouthing me in the green room early on because I told them 10 minutes all you have, and I'll turn your mic off, and they promised murder. I saw one of your pieces of advice on, I think point 1 was about processes and systems, and it's quite cool because one of our sponsors today is Piperfy. They are able to assist, obviously, in terms of process development for companies. So where's Megan and where's Neville? There's Megan, there's Neville at the back there. So if anybody is interested to learn more about process automation and workflow, those are your two individuals to chat to at some point today in the conversation, either at drinks afterwards, maybe not after drinks because then you will ask them for a freebie, and they don't do free work. That I don't know. Maybe they will. Ask them nicely. But yeah, so please chat to Piperfy. I'm sure they can assist you at least on the process side, because I'm definitely hearing from the conversation so far a clear thread that data sits everywhere. Is this marketing function? Isn't this a marketing function? And how do we manage all of these different sources of information? And I think one of the key areas to solve that is process. Right, our last keynote, and we already have 2 minutes before we're meant to be done here today. So I hope she speaks 1.5 times WhatsApp speed. Tanja de Koorte, so nice to have you with us today. One of our newest members of the IAB from Rainmaker. She is a senior executive and digital specialist, 17 years, so she's been in the industry longer than you, sir. Knows a thing or two, was officially a couple of years ago named Mail and Guardian's top 200 young South Africans to watch. And so we're excited to hear some of your insights today, Tanja. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. Really clicky. Thanks so much. So 1.5 speed up, is that the brief?
That's it.
Is that the brief? I feel this is unfair. Although the speakers actually set up my presentation very nicely, so I feel like I can skip on to the good stuff. Can I quickly, though, just get an indication from the room? Who has heard of Rainmaker, has interacted with Rainmaker? Nice. Okay. So I assume that you know what retail media is and that I don't need to explain that in great detail. Great. That'll save a lot of time. Okay. So I'm Tanja. I'm from Rainmaker Media. And in a nutshell, Rainmaker is the retail media network for the ShopRite group of companies. So you've heard the term now. Also, it was called by Richard as a new channel emerging into this market in Africa. Very exciting space to be, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but really the focus is on first-party data, and also I'm going to give you some examples around how we use it and what we do with it, just to hopefully give you some ideas of the possibilities that's out there. So you should be familiar with all the brands. The only thing you should really know for today is that because we are part of the ShopRite group, we have access to the ShopRite group's first-party data. So that's the Extra Savings loyalty program. And I'll go into that in a little bit. I just put up 3 slides just in case there were some people who were not on the same page. In terms of retail media, just a quick definition, if you don't know what it is basically just a form of advertising that allows brands to promote their products in a retailer's environment. So whether that's in the stores or on the digital platforms like 6060 or on the websites that we have, that is the opportunity there. And why it's so cool and why it works so well is just because it's really highly targeted messages, because we use the first-party data to target our audiences, but also we show those advertising messages to customers when they are ready to buy. So they're busy making their decision and they see the product in front of them. So that's why it's really powerful stuff. And you can imagine it's gold for an FMCG brand. But even outside of that, I think it's just very important to note, and I will show you a case study and explain how we do this. But even outside of FMCG, people think retail media, they immediately think, oh, FMCG only. Not true. We do have obviously the ability to use the shopper data to derive other insights that are very meaningful for brands. And I'll show you how we do that. So just quickly parking on here, this is obviously the first-party data that ShopRite has. Currently, the Extra Savings program is sitting around 30 million people, individuals. And we have about 5,000 data points on each of these 30 million people, so half of the South African population. And also, they swipe their cards 2,500 times per minute. That swipe is going on as we speak. So we're collecting data at the speed of light. Obviously puts us in a good position to utilize first-party data in a very specific way. So giving you an indication of the types of data we collect, you can imagine, with Extra Savings, we obviously collect a lot of data from the customers when they sign up. But through every single engagement or interaction with any of our channels, we collect data from our customers. So this customer here, you can see the profile. I didn't do that. He's sabotaging my time. This is basically a full profile that you can now see from this specific customer. And it'll show you a couple of things. The data we collect around demographical data, contextual, behavioral interactions, you can see if you go around. So just in summary, if you had to look at this profile from this customer, things that you will be able to know is from a shopping behavior, from the transactions we pick up in store, we can see she's buying nappies. We know she has children. There's 2 different types of nappies. She has 2 children. We know their ages, we know the gender, obviously from just looking at the purchase. We can also see she buys fancy cat treats, which obviously gives us an idea of the affluence, factor for this customer. We can see when she shops, when she does the big shopping, when she does a, investigation on what she wants to buy. We can see from the preferences, the choices she's making, she's probably gluten intolerant because she's buying gluten-free products. And also, for loyalty, we can see what channels is she interacting with more or less. In this case, Checkers email, she opens it all the time. So if we had to advertise to this specific customer, we would go and not, for example, send her an Omar Rusk ad on a Monday after she did her shopping. We would rather go and look at doing a gluten-free option on the Saturday when she's planning her big shopping trip for the Sunday, and we'll do that marketing message via the email channel because she's the most likely to engage with that channel. So that's how we would go about making sure that the messages and the timing and the channels are very specifically tailored to this customer at a personalized level. So the power of first-party data, I don't think we need to really convince anybody. I think everybody knows that having data that is very specific to your business that you've collected specifically directly from your customers is really powerful stuff. But we put it to the test. We wanted to see just like how powerful is this data, and if we had to run campaigns using the data, what does that look like compared to using third-party or other data sources? So this is just an example of what we did on social media. So we ran a Facebook campaign, and what we did is we just did nappies here. You can see there's a nappy ad. We targeted customers who buy nappies or into that category. And obviously, we know, like I said, what type of nappies they buy and also when they buy. You don't want to show them the nappy after they've just bought. It's a monthly thing. So we would then go and upload our audience onto the Meta platform, for example, and then target this audience very specifically with a nappy ad. And then we also ran a campaign side by side, just using the platform's data, which is mostly interest data that you get on Meta when you run campaigns there. And we ran those 2 campaigns side by side. And the difference was that the first-party data performed 33 times better than the behavioral data or the interest data on the platform. So it really is powerful stuff, and there's quite a lot of, I can show you lots of case studies, but we don't have a lot of time. So I'm going to just go back to, yes. Oh, sorry, I thought you had a question. Yeah, I'm going to make you feel really bad about that. So just, I mentioned that it outperformed. It did 33 times better. So maybe just to contextualize that. So what are we measuring exactly? And I think there has been some conversations already around like measuring the effectiveness of your first-party data initiatives is actually quite important because it helps to justify investments. It helps to justify obviously all the things that the things we've mentioned right in the beginning. But in this case, because we have the transactional data ultimately, and we are quite down in the funnel, we can measure the sales. So the conversion and the sale is quite an important metric to measure return on investment, because ultimately you want to know, if I spent X amount, how much did I make in return from my marketing activities? Because that's why we do advertising and marketing, is because we want to make sales. So basically the two things that we can do in this case here is the ROAS report and the lift study. So very quickly, just what a ROAS report is, everybody knows what ROAS means. Measuring your return on ad spend, you need to know who saw your ad to be able to connect that to who bought the products. So we've got a product also where we can use in-store sales data, because online it's easy. E-commerce, you've got an ad, you click on it, you land on the e-commerce site, you check out, it's a nice clean link, you can measure it very easily. But in South Africa, we know that a lot of the sales are still happening in the physical store environments. So we have to take that into account if we really want to measure the performance. So this is where we have an offline to online product as well. We have the ability to take that sale that happens in the store because of the card being swiped and connect that to the ad that was shown on the platforms. You can do it obviously on our own platforms, but even on our off-site marketing activities, we have the ability to upload our sales data back into the social media platforms and overlay that with the ad exposure data. So we can connect whether the person who saw the ad also went and bought the product and whether that ad changed the behavior of that customer. So now you might also argue within the FMCG environment that these products are sold frequently. So how do you know that it wasn't just like time for me to buy the nappies, or it was time for me to buy some more milk because my milk was finished? So that the argument is you can't just connect the dots and call it a sale. So this is where lift studies come in. So in this environment, it's very important to ensure that we can accurately determine whether the ads are working, not just because we connected the dots, but that we have something to substantiate that. So lift studies is a product where we take control groups. So we have an online and an offline version of this, but the online one, very easy. You take your audience segment. We've got a customer segment we're targeting, everybody who buys nappies. 10% of that segment we take out, and we don't show them the ad. So then we run the ads, and remember, these customers behaved exactly the same. They were all buying nappies before we did this exercise. 10% just didn't see the ad over this period, and then we measure the sales at the end. So if there's an incremental lift in sales on the exposed group to the non-exposed group, that's when we know that the ad actually had an impact, because they behaved the same, and during the campaign, the guys who saw it bought, the other ones didn't. We can tell that this had an impact. So that's where we can really start getting clever with measuring the success of your first-party data activities. Just a quick example of what a ROAS report looks like in our world. You'll see all the normal stuff down the bottom there, all the impressions, click-through, engagement, everything you should expect to see from a media report. But the good stuff, obviously, at the top there, we obviously can report then on sales, volume, and value. So the amount of sales that went through till, as well as the amount of units sold. And that makes it very easy then for us to calculate that ROAS, because again, we can link that swipe. We've got a Hybris ID in the store. We can link that to the Facebook ID. And then we can say, for every 1 rand you spent on advertising on this campaign, you made 15 rand in return in sales. That's a nice story to take back to your CFO or to your exco to go and ask for more investment, whether it's marketing investment or technology investment. It's really powerful stuff. So I think ShopRite, it's clear ShopRite has data. That's clear, obviously, and we're not scared to use it. But I think where the opportunity is here, because that's great, yay for us, but what does that mean for brands, and what does it mean for everybody in the room? It's this opportunity, the partnerships. It was also mentioned, I think Richard mentioned it, Alexi mentioned something about partnerships as well. This is a massive opportunity, because not everybody has the volume of first-party data needed to really make it work for you. But data partnerships is where the magic will really happen. So if you have, whether it's a little bit or a lot of data, there are these opportunities out there to partner with somebody who has the part that you don't have of the puzzle. Obviously, in our case, transactional data. In other cases, there might be conversions happening in other places where you can partner. And the measurement collaborations, like closing that loop. It's a very important part of the puzzle. And why this is becoming even more and more and more important was also mentioned earlier, but the cookie monster has eaten all the cookies. So there is obviously the deprecation happening, and although it keeps getting moved out, signal loss is inevitable. So we really do need to be ready for it, and first-party data partnerships is how we prepare. So this is the how, and then I'm going to quickly show you 2 examples, but the how is, and especially how we do it and how it can be done obviously in the industry, it's through clean rooms. So when you're doing a data partnership, you need to have the ability to overlay data sets. And obviously the only way you can do that in a way that is not compromising either the privacy, security, or just the control that the company has over the data is by doing it in a clean room that is an off-site neutral space. And obviously in this example, just as you can see here, we have invested into a clean room called Omniscient. So that obviously gives us the ability, you can see company A, company B, 2 companies can come and put their data into this clean room. And then obviously the idea is that you will find insights in this data set so you can target specific customers with specific messages. So I'll quickly play that out in the 2 examples that I have. Okay, more animation. Cool. So the 2 examples to end off with the 2 called case studies, but just 2 quick examples. But the one I'll do a non-FMCG, so this is financial services case study, and then a quick FMCG just to show you the different types of applications here. So in the financial services case study example, I'll just quickly give you an overview of what the campaign objective was. So this specifically was for Standard Bank. They wanted to drive new credit card acquisitions. So you might think, why on earth would you go to a retail media network to drive credit card acquisitions? Because they don't sell credit cards in ShopRite or Checkers. That doesn't make sense. But then I'll show you what we did. Obviously, the idea is to go and find these customers, and we had to do this with a data partnership. So we used Omniscient. We took Standard Bank's credit card user data. Basically, they segmented a specific audience within their customer data or first-party data, specifically that had a propensity for healthy credit card usage. I tell my husband that's healthy credit card usage when you swipe it a lot, and obviously low risk as well. So you basically then take that segment, we put it into Omniscient, where we also put our extra savings audience, and then we'll overlay the 2 data sets. So now obviously we can pick up on quite a few additional data points because of that additional 5,000 data points we have in our customer base that we can now assign to the customers in Standard Bank's database. But we're also looking for specific profiles and behavior. So obviously the ones that we've identified there, we want to look for people with the healthy credit card usage and the low risk. And then we would identify the portfolio and overlay that and also create a lookalike audience. So that's kind of where it gets really interesting, because we obviously can see who Standard Bank, who banks with Standard Bank within our base, but we can also see similar profiles who don't bank with Standard Bank. So if everything else is the same, the only difference is they don't bank with Standard Bank, that is a really great audience for Standard Bank to go and target, to go get new credit cards signed up. So then we would go and extract that audience and obviously give it to Standard Bank so they can target that audience with new credit card messages. This is the results of that specific campaign. So you can see there we have a 12% from the unique views to the campaign. We had a 12% unique view to lead ratio. So of all the people who saw it, and obviously we can measure that view, we generated 12% leads. And from all the leads that we've generated, 14% converted, which then resulted in that at the bottom, which is 728% return on investment. And that obviously, that is if you take the amount of money that was spent on this campaign and you compare it to the lifetime value of a customer, a credit card customer for Standard Bank. So, I mean, it's a no-brainer really, as far as finding the right people to target, even if it's not within the FMCG environment. And then the FMCG case study. So this is the more obvious one because we sell these products in store. So it's quite easy for us to connect these dots. But here you can see this one was for Colgate. And what we specifically were asked to do is to drive sales through 60/60, so using the 60/60 app, and also by finding customers who buy into this category. So customers who buy toothpaste, we need to tell them about Colgate, and obviously drive those sales through 60/60. So attributing sales back to the ad views is closed loop report is what we did to measure the success of this one. And I'll quickly just give you that overview of how this played out and also how you can use this, what we call a performance loop, to continuously optimize your campaign once you've set this thing in motion. So just starting at the far your left there, segment audiences. So I mentioned what we do is we start with who are we looking to target. So we'll go and segment that audience. We'll say everybody who buys into the toothpaste category. We can broaden that up if we wanted to, personal care, whatever. But we will segment that audience as a starting point. Then what we'll do in this case is we would take that audience and share it across to Colgate, and they'll actually, to their brand account on Meta, they'll actually do the advertising from their side. But now not using interest data on the social platform, rather using the first-party data from Extra Savings with the transactional data, obviously, at its core. So they will go and then target those audiences from their brand account on the Meta platform. And then with that, we'll also provide a deep link to 60/60. So you will obviously, we want to drive conversions, you want to check out quickly, you want to see the ad on Facebook and immediately be able to click on it and check out. So it's not an awareness campaign, it is, I want to buy this product, I need to land in the product page on 60/60 so I can conveniently check out. So that's what that journey allows for. And then we record the sales. So obviously once the sale has happened, we can record it and we upload it back into the Meta platform. So once it's back in the platform, this is when it starts obviously getting interesting because it can actually then be used to optimize, or you just pull your ROAS report, as I mentioned earlier. We've got sales, we've got ad views, we can connect it to and give you a ROAS report, or we upload that data to optimize performance against sales, not against engagements, not against anything else, against sales. And Meta also has some very cool AI, obviously, that does a lot of this on platform as well, where it can take the profile of the person who bought the product and find similar people to show it to. So if these guys are buying, what do they look like? You know, let's show it to more people who have similar profiles, and also take out the people who have already bought, because otherwise we're wasting our ad budget showing the ad to the same people after they've converted already. So then you're optimizing, you refine your audience, and you go on, and so you go again. So this is something you can continuously do on an always-on basis, even having campaigns run like this. But a very nice way to do conversion attribution, also in real time, to increase your ROAS and minimize wastage of your ad budgets. So that is pretty much, in a nutshell, the FMCG and the results you can see over here. Obviously, we can report here on the sales, so you can see the sales growth, 54% additional sales achieved as a result of this specific campaign, and also 43% additional units sold as a result of this campaign. The secondary, I think, success measures, as you can see there, we also, I mean, it's great to see that engagement is being positively impacted, and the CTR was even 225% higher. So everything lifts up, but obviously we focus on the bottom of the funnel mostly because we can. So that's what it boils down to. And that is it in a nutshell. Was I quick? As quick as I could be. Yeah, I look forward to questions because I'm sure there'll be lots.
Well, no, you kind of cleaned the room, unfortunately. Raise your hand if you're now intimidated and are like grumpy by the end of that. Sure. Honestly, what you guys are doing at ShopRite and at Rainmaker is incredible. So I don't think we've heard such a comprehensive sort of case study. So what are you all wasting your time for? Come now. It's possible. We've seen it work. It's incredible. Bridget Ngobo is going to come up on the stage now and lead our next panel. The audience has a very important question for you. Is why is Google playing games with us?
I'm sorry.
Why is Chrome not giving us the cookie to go away yet?
I'm a heartbreaker.
Bridget Ngobo is from Google, and she'll be facilitating our panel discussion today. And this is your chance to ask your questions as well too. So please do keep them written down and ready to rock and roll. I'll try and stand on the side so I can have a mic nearby to you for any questions that you do have. So we'll start with that now.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. Listen, we are like a running a little bit over time, and I'm very conscious of that. And we all sit in the green room. It's totally fine. It's okay. But you are the real recipients of today's food for thought. So, how are you feeling about your questions? Do you think your questions are more important than my questions? Yeah, probably, no? Yeah, I'm seeing a little bit of that. Okay, so if you know what, we can make this a little bit interactive. So I will ask a question, Nat, just so we can cut down a little bit on time. So I'll ask a question, and then I'll put it out to you, and you can ask a question, and we'll kind of do it like that. Does that work? Does that work? Okay. Listen, this is like my first moment of sharing. I'm an only child. I don't share, so please say yes more enthusiastically. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all of your talks. You were absolutely incredible to listen to. I'm very intimidated after you, Tanja. I don't care about the gentleman. I'm kidding. No, but it was really incredible to hear those insights, and I think it's been really helpful to everybody in the room. I am going to start with the first person who spoke, so that's you, Richard. Richard, you told us really that there were three main areas that we needed to kind of focus on. It was around the future-proofing of measurement, future-proofing measurement, privacy management, and audiences. Those were the kind of the three main themes that kind of came up for you. My question to you is, if there were three things that I do differently tomorrow, as a brand, as an agency, what would those three things be based on those themes that you shared with us? Off script. I did not send them these questions.
I think it depends on what kind of company you are. I mean, I think ShopRite has done an unbelievable job because they've got consented first-party data.
Yeah.
So I think there's probably a lot of brands out there that got a lot of data, but it's not consented, and so they don't really know what to do. So in that situation, you start getting that. You need to get that database. I mean, it's unbelievable what they can do if you do it right. And then obviously from the privacy and all that sort of thing, you need to look at what's required, and you need to really be looking 3 years ahead. Don't worry. Even things like the cookieless thing, that ship has sailed. We've got to be thinking 3 years, 5 years ahead. And so there's things like building up your database. There's things like getting all your consented stuff. There's things like making sure your users can opt in or give consent, etc. And that kind of stuff takes time. But the problem with that is because it takes time, you must start soon. From a measurement perspective, looking at some of these new, techniques, the reality is, as you know, at Google, it's changing. So invest in that. I understand not everyone has the same budget. So, you got to, if you're a small advertiser, you might only be in 1 or 2 channels. You don't have to have all these big tools because the platforms are doing it for you. Like, we saw there. So I think it also depends on your size. The larger you get and the more channels and the more areas you're looking at, you then have to start investing in tools that can tie it all together. So I think it also depends on sort of the size you are.
Okay, thank you very much. Tanja, I'm going to go to you next. You showed us some incredible things. It looks like a unicorn. I'm not sure how that's happening. But I guess my question for you is, what is the secret sauce for a business to be able to have that end state, right? And I'm not talking about just the technology of it all, but in terms of the ways businesses are structured, how they're thinking from the top to the middle to the bottom. No one's at the bottom anymore, but you know what I mean. What is the secret sauce for a business to be able to organize itself to be able to produce some of the results that you just showed us?
I think actually Alexi said it in his presentation as well. It's start with the end in mind, because ultimately if you're trying to get to this point where you can really utilize your data in a way that you can draw insights and action against it, you really need to think about that being the end result when you start setting up your systems, your infrastructure, making your decisions and investments. I think ShopRite had the last mover advantage actually when it comes to, and I think why we got here so quickly is because we were the last to launch our loyalty program. Smart Shop has been around forever, Woolies has had theirs forever, but when they launched theirs, it was always just a loyalty program. When ShopRite launched their loyalty program, it was with this end in mind, is that we can then collect data and use those insights for the better of the retailer, obviously how we merchandise, how we, where we put things on shelves, all the way to how we help our suppliers or brands or other businesses outside of that utilize that data more effectively for marketing and advertising. So I think starting with the end in mind, if you have the opportunity to start from scratch, fantastic. It's hard to work with legacy systems when that's already in place, but it is quite important to get everything in one place. So customer data platforms were also mentioned. It is quite critical to have a single view of customer. If your data is all over the place, having data is not enough. You need to know, from a single ID perspective, that this customer, has certain behaviors to really advertise to them effectively. So I think investing in a central platform where all your data can live, a customer data platform, is also quite critical. So those are the things, I think, the two things that I would definitely advise, if possible, to do.
All right, so Alexi, that means you're going to get the hardest question,
Awesome.
which is how do brands figure out what the end they should have in mind is, right? Like we have a colleague at Google, his name is Marcel, and he always says, start with your veggies first. He says that all the time. I do not resonate with the statement. I eat chocolate cake before I eat dinner. But the principle makes sense. Start with your veggies first. So you've got this end in mind, and now I've going to include AI in that. Like now, I want to create something that talks to my customer without any people. How do you start with the right end in sight when you're integrating MarTech and AdTech?
So it's a great question. Actually, I know Marcel, a great guy. I think it forces you, when you start with the end in mind, it forces you to be very practical about what you're trying to achieve. So you look at it from a use case basis. Instead of looking at it from a very theoretical place, you're looking at it from a very pragmatic place. And if you can literally put your wish list on a page, I think that's your starting point. From there, it becomes a challenge to understand, which technology can help me activate against these, use cases, which one is realistically achievable in the time frame I've got, how much does it cost, have I got a team to support it? But yeah, I think if you force yourself into a place where you say, I would like to be in a position where my brand can execute against these, new gen thinking, marketing strategies, I think then it puts you in a place where you can move, work backwards from there.
Okay, fantastic. And since everybody's important today, and it's not just me because I have a mic, I'm going to take some of your questions. Do we have a question? Yes, hello.
That was quick.
I need you to say your name, and then, yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ryan Sauer. I represent a data analytics firm called Redwood, and we help and consult to brands and agencies on data analytics. And my question that I want to ask is, you talk about customer data platforms or these CRM platforms, and there are so many of them out there, and they're adopted on the client side. Now the agencies have to now have all these clients that they serve, all the way from the large corporates to the TI autos and down. How do we create agencies that are versed in Salesforce, Domo, Adobe Marketing Cloud, HubSpot, and the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to know if you have a view of how you would guard it, because it's something I'm seeing, but how do the agencies prepare themselves to be relevant for the client's technology adoption?
Absolutely. Before anybody answers that question, I would like to add to your question and say whose responsibility is the first-party data strat. That is actually Hayden's question. Hayden is right here. He's a measurement specialist for Sub-Saharan Africa from Google, but he asks that all the time. Whose responsibility is first-party data and the first-party data strategy for any one organization? Is it the company? Is it the brand? Is it the agency? Who actually owns that responsibility? So, those who are answering the questions, luckily today I'm just asking stuff, those who are answering the questions, if you could answer those questions in a combined way, that would be amazing. Whose responsibility is it, and how do we upskill agencies to be able to really come rise to the challenge of first-party data?
I'll go for it.
Are you answering that first question or the second question?
Both.
I'm going to go with Ryan's question.
He's like, you're not important, it's fine. I committed myself to that today.
So I'm going to have a go at both then. Ryan, I think the bottom line around, just paraphrase your question so I can address it clearly, please. Sorry, are they blending together?
You've got agent.
You've got clients.
You've got client, and you've got agency.
How do you build
Technology
agents?
is
Yes.
massively fragmented.
question.
How do we prepare ourselves
Yeah.
to service our clients in technology that we're not versed in?
Yeah.
And some of them are quite closed. So
Sure.
Salesforce qualifications,
It's
Adobe Marketing Cloud
impossible to get in
qualifications.
there.
they're
There's a
paid for.
license fee just for
There's
you to
license-
access the... Yeah,
How
look,
do we make ourselves relevant to the large organizations as their partners?
I think when you talk... That's a great question. And the answer to that, my view, is you get agencies or partners or consultants that are good for those things.
Exactly.
And the consultation that we offer our clients should not be, I'm going to run this activity for you. It should be, this platform's wrong for you. It's too complicated. This platform's right for you, but it doesn't integrate with your biggest money spinner in Google. And I think that's the approach that you need to take. You can consult on the strategy. You're never going to be a silver bullet to
100%.
absolutely every client. You cannot do that. I think it also speaks to the partnership space. I work with Richard on a variety of fun things on different clients, and I think it pays you to be in a space where you've got partnerships with people that are specialists in areas, and for you to be very clear about what your niche is. And if your niche is, we'll learn whatever CRM platform you use, and we will grow a team around that. That's one way of doing it. But if I think about how in the CRM space, you always find that the implementation team of a product is always a what am I trying to say? A advocate for a certain product.
Yeah.
You're going to have HubSpot diamond agencies.
Yeah.
They're not going to sell you, sales.
Yeah.
Salesforce. So I think that's why the implementation piece is always, we are this agency, or we are that agency. You're never going to find an agency that goes, cool, what are we building today? I feel those days are gone. Maybe in the web space, but not so much in that space. Sorry.
Whose responsibility is it?
I believe it's definitely both. Sorry,
Okay.
Eden. It depends on the makeup and the mix and the skill set of the client and of the of the agency, but it's a blend for me.
Hayden, we've got two hands up. Audrey first.
Oh,
I'm so sorry.
What we need to
Audrey.
prioritize. Audrey first.
Go ahead.
Yes, so
It's on.
okay. So Ryan, I think the starting place is for agency to actually get access to some of the tools, which in our case, a lot of the agencies actually don't even ask for access. So I think we're operating in a world where we're tech agnostic, and the bigger the corporate are, you are going to be tech agnostic. It's not going to solve the problem of streamlining or rationalizing your tech stack. However, it starts from a place of understanding and knowing, and we expect the agencies to actually understand. You don't have to understand the tech stack, you have to understand what's the outcome of your goal, so that's important.
Sorry, I'm not in
Great.
charge of the microphone.
Yeah, there was a question over here that was first, and I'll get to yours, sir.
Hi everyone, I am Aura. I've worked on both agency and now I'm on brand side. So it's it's been an interesting one. And my question is, I guess, to all of you, right? And it comes off your question as well. Customer data for brands in this instance. If you had to, and I'm putting you on a spot, it's an opinion question, I guess. If you had to pick one or two customer CRM data that can do attribution well, that can do tracking well, that can clean up data well,
Sure.
what?
Depends on the
To pick a technology
Yeah.
stack.
And I think
Objective, like
I'm
what you wanna
directly
do.
talking to you because you said all of that. You said you guys do it so perfectly. So if you had to pick one or two, because I don't think I saw it on the presentation, what would it be?
Are you asking about a specific recommendation on a tech stack or
Yeah.
a
Basically,
or a
getting started
platform?
with trying to extract
which
like
piece of
clean
data?
and use data. Like it sounds like we
Yeah.
keep talking about these tech stacks, but it sounds like there are 40 in each stack.
Yeah.
Where do we begin? Like,
what
is there not
piece
one
of
tool that does at least most of it, and then it's imperfect, but at least it does everything imperfectly?
Yeah. So listen, I mean, I think there is a difference between CRM and DMP as well.
Yeah.
So it's like we use the words interchangeably for some reason, but the CDP, I think, is the most important thing to have in place if you're serious about extracting and drawing insights from your customer data, not just a collection of it. And then obviously actioning from there, you need other things. So it's not something that you can advise on unless you understand all variables, the size of business, the positioning, there's budgets to be considered, all those things. So just a blanket answer won't do anybody justice. But I mean, then there's I'm not here to promote any tools. So,
From what perspective are you asking? From analyzing data and looking at it and kind of just gleaning insights?
The question in your question, in the sense that I think the question is, this is very overwhelming. It is one thing that does it all.
Okay.
And the answer is no. There's no one thing that does it all. You need to think about the phase of your customer. Collection, clean, utilize, segment, advertise, and you need to think about them as a
and
stack.
I think this is why, I mean, I guess if your question is like, what within all of that scope is the most important thing to focus on if you could just do one thing, I think it's obviously if you've got multiple places or multiple sources of data that you're collecting, the only way you're going to utilize that data properly is if you can put it in one place. Exactly. So that's, I think
what's the best data collection tool?
I would say Low2Me is a good one if you're putting me on the spot. Low2Me is a very good
Note2Me.
Yeah, good CDP. No. Now I'm going to get commission. Can I get commission on the sale if they make it?
There's many CDPs.
Listen, ask the consultants to advise properly. CDP is my final answer.
That's also mine.
Any other recommendations of tools other than that?
CDP, I mean, look, I agree with you. We're not here to fight, but I think a CDP functionality is inherent on collecting customer data. So if you think about a CDP from the formal sense, CDPs are not needed for every business, but CDP-esque technology is. So if you've got a CRM platform like any of the ones you mentioned earlier, guys, most of those have CDP-esque technology in that can do some of what you would want to do with a CDP in isolation. Starting where you are, I would say look at CRM platforms that have the CDP functionality first because it's closer to the activation space.
And it's more cost effective actually as well. Especially if you're in the smaller.
I'll comment on the CDP thing as a consultant. Everything has gone through stages. If it's DMP, it's tag management systems. It's all these tools come in as buzzwords, right? And CDPs obviously have been a big thing, but ultimately, if you digest it, it's a tool to gather customer data and unify it, and then you use it and activate it. So CRM traditionally can't really do that. That's why CDPs were built. But the CDP, I think the biggest problem with CDPs is they were built to solve a problem without really thinking about the impact on business. So basically what happened was, we want to give us all your data, because I'm marketing and you want me to put all your data into my CDP. So there's a new brand of CDPs now called, not brand, there's a new category of CDPs called composable CDPs, which actually, ironically, I worked for a company 15 years ago that we did this, and it just, but that was direct marketing days. Which is really kind of the same thing. We're just sending coupons instead of emails. But what it means is you can start to get the data you need and fetch it from where it is without copying it everywhere. So I think that's something to think about because I think that's been a massive issue for companies. And you must remember everything's in the cloud. So you don't want to have to copy all your data into the cloud all the time. So there's definitely, for me, when we talk about tools, try and look at it more like Lego and architect it and do things and build that like that. And also, if you don't buy into one tool across the board, you don't have lock-in, which is another high-risk thing.
But then there's lots of integrations.
There is lots of integrations, but I think, in fact, you probably need someone, like a consultant, to advise you around building that environment. Because I think what I find most of the time I talk to clients, there's no one who looks at that as a strategy. There's the media people, there's the CRM people, but no one's on top saying, this is what we need to build. And that to me is the biggest issue. I've never actually found a company that's got that person.
I actually have a question then on that, which is what does good governance look like around a first-party data strategy and how it gets implemented? Like what, in your experience, what does a really good strategy and governance structure look like in organizations?
Well, I think Tanja probably answers this because she's done it a lot more. But I think for me, the biggest thing is making sure you get the data, it's clean and it's consented. I mean, people will get data. I mean, dealerships, car companies are very guilty of this. They've got so many dealerships, they've got so much data, no one gets consented. They got all this data. So for me, it's especially if you have things like branches or you don't own all the data. You need to create that framework to say this is the process. And if you're getting data, you must get this, and so we have the data in the end. Because you can't retrofit that. And I think that to me is one of the most important things. People need to, actually it's education.
Yeah.
You need to be the person in the field or facing the consumer needs to be educated and understand the value of that. Because once you understand the value of it, you can also drive that forward.
100%.
Yeah.
Tanja?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. The consent is number one. So obviously the transparency also around that. So what are you going to do with the data? So not just getting a box to be ticked, but also explaining clearly what you intend to do with the data, I think is very important. So the customers feel like they're giving you consent, they know what it's for, and when it happens, they can't really be upset about it. So that is kind of first and foremost a big thing for us as well. And then obviously just from a compliance and a governance perspective, you know, you need to make sure you've got your checks and balances in place, because I mean there's legal implications if you don't. So we had to go through massive audits from external parties looking at our processes, how we collect, store, destroy data, you know, all of that being, you know, put through the ringer to make sure that it's done in the right way. But it's rather have that stamp of approval from a third party, so you know that what your activities entail are above board and that you're doing things in the right way. And also they advise, sometimes you actually don't know certain things that you should be doing. It's a little thing, but it actually can, you know, be a big thing if it's on the wrong side of the law. So I would also recommend that you have a third party come and have a look at your processes, you know, to ensure that you are doing it right.
Yeah, I think just to add to that in terms of make sure you got your checks and balances, model it on something like the GDPR, model it on the strictest thing like Europe, because then you're backward compatible. You know, we can't say, oh, we're an opt-out society. It's going to catch you in the end. You know, you've got to actually. The European has now spread to the US, to the CCPA, whatever. You know, it's going to happen. So model your design on that almost most strict environment that'll benefit you in the future.
In the long run. Okay.
Great. Snacks before weren't enough. We need to get to food. So I'll ask one more question, and I suppose anyone else who has other questions, please do bring them to our speakers after this. They'll be mingling for a little while afterwards. So I think you were next.
Thank you. Name is Lita Gogela from DSTV, Digital Account Manager. I think my question is to the entire panel. Is there a future for brands in this world that's being described here? How do we build brands using first-party data? Because specifically listening to Tanja, it doesn't sound like there's really a need for a brand name, for example, right? Using first-party data. So I think that's the core of the question. Is there a future for brand building in a world where advertisers mainly use first-party data? And maybe the second question is, for Tanja specifically, did you run into any popular issues around, I mean, I was listening to your Standard Bank case study, and you mentioned that you only targeted people that were using non-Standard Bank cards. Is there maybe a privacy issue with that kind of data? Because that's not necessarily related to, you know, to checkers specifically.
Yeah. So that's a very good question. So to clarify that, all the channels also have their own opt-ins and consent. So even Meta has a consent, and when you're on that platform, you are actually saying it's okay to advertise to me.
Yeah.
So that kind of, you know, in this environment, then it's almost like Checkers and Standard Bank. In that case, you've already consented to be advertised to on the platform. In terms of using the data, so in that example specifically, so we have consent from our extra savings base to advertise to them things obviously that pertain to the brands, like you mentioned, like Checkers, ShopRite, anything that we sell to them. Anything outside of that, it has to go via the channels of the partners. So we don't speak to them directly via our channels in that case. So in this case, remember the idea was to just identify the right profile of customers to be targeted. And then if you get targeted via Facebook, you know, that's kind of where the consent is sitting, if you know what I mean. Yeah. That's where the ad happens.
Then a question about, is there still space for brands in this?
Oh yeah, the second, the other part. So I'm not sure if I understand 100% what you were asking about, if there's still space for brand building versus, so
Correct.
maybe...
So basically the worry is that obviously this is very focused on sales, getting people to buy something at the end of the line. So brand building doesn't require that attribution and that amazing amount of like follow through from in-store to offline? Like, where's brand building in this first-party data world of marketing?
Listen, I think the marketing funnel is not going to be chucked out the window. There is still space within this funnel for everything to happen. And everything influences a customer's behavior at the end of the day. The loyalty you have to a brand will influence your behavior, not just the timing of the ad. So it is a funnel for a reason. And I think so, not to take away from the rest of it. And also we have something called objective-led campaigns. When we action certain campaigns, we start with the objectives and we go, sometimes the brands just want to create brand awareness. That's fine. We have massive amounts of people we can show the brand to, across our store footprint. We speak to 80% of the population through the store network. We have screens in stores, we have physical print in stores, we have the radio channel, we're the biggest radio station, looking at Where's Media, in the country because of our footprint, not a commercial radio station, so we're going to get shunned.
Please leave the stage.
Not in this office, you don't. Sorry, Wayne. So I think the idea of just because you can doesn't mean you should. And there are other objectives. So we're also very specific about measuring success against the objective. So if your objective was reach or education or awareness, we measure how many people did we reach for you, not how many sales we converted for you. Because otherwise we're measuring the wrong thing. It's not what you wanted to achieve. So I go through with the full scope of, we use AR and interesting stuff also to engage customers in ways, influencers and stuff on social media that doesn't just drive the sales. So absolutely, there's a place for all those traditional marketing activities to happen. And even on other channels like outdoor or whatever, it drives that loyalty, that the repetition of it, everything comes together at the end of the day that results in that conversion. So I think brand building also has a very important place still to play. If your objective is sales and conversion, it makes sense to partner with somebody who can help drive that and measure it. That's what it boils down to. Yeah.
100%. 91% of consumers are most likely to stay with the brand if they're using their data responsibly. Now, in order to stay with that brand, you need to know that brand. So there's still definitely a job for both.
Can I just as a little example quickly, that's also something that maybe just to help illustrate
he's
this.
also holding me accountable, so
I'm going to start singing.
I'm not in charge anymore.
Now it's 2 times WhatsApp speed, please. Thank you, Tanja.
Sorry, that was the fastest I've ever done this presentation. So
and you did great still.
Chill, guys. Like speed dating. It's crazy. So just quickly, example, using Colgate again. So obviously for the brands to build their own first-party data is also important. So it shouldn't also be taken away from them. Talk about responsibility. I think it is your responsibility as a brand also to ensure that you understand your customers, you know who they are, you know what they want, because that also informs product development and all kinds of other things that you do. Colgate launched a chatbot on WhatsApp that basically asks customers about, it's like a dentist consulting a dentist about your, things that basically then advises you what kind of toothpaste you should be using and gives you advice. So you're building a relationship with the brand through this chatbot, loyalty to the brand, feel like they're adding value to your life. It's something outside of sales. But once that obviously that activity is run, and ultimately they want to then drive sales off the back of now we've educated customers on what products are best for them. Now we need them to go buy it. Then they connect those dots again with retail media. So, sorry, that was just an example of how that played out recently in the real world.
Okay, amazing. He's not going to let us continue talking, so I'm going to just...
I will, just outside, somewhere else with drink in hand.
We're done. I already
Can you mute their mics, please? Is that fun?
Switch it off.
But interesting to note about brand building that I think is really cool as a sort of wrap-up is, I know it's scary thinking that we're now getting further and further away from the customer, but I think the reverse is true. I think we're trying to get closer and closer to understand our customer.
Exactly.
And 2, would Tanya's ads performed as well if it was a brand that was completely unknown with zero brand presence and people didn't like them at all, like they had a terrible presence? The likelihood of that, those conversion rates being slightly lower. So the brand building exercise is still critical and important. This is just about trying to figure out how do we close the gap in attribution as well to in data and do so responsibly. So round of applause for our panelists and Britta Ngobo, our panelist lead from Google. They can talk very fast, and I appreciate that. Please don't hurt me. Sit down. Thank you, gents. On that note, it's almost time for us to wrap up. I know we're all getting itchy-footed, but because you're in our host's house, the host must speak to you. And the owner of our house, Wayne Bischoff, is here. I'd just like to say a few words. He said it'll take about 45 minutes or so, if we're comfortable with that. So Wayne, your 45 minutes starts now, 1.5 WhatsApp speed.
It really is an honor that we are hosting the Brand Council session over here at our premises. We have enough space. It's great to see it used so wonderfully. And it's also great this whole session is not virtual. I'm seeing people, I'm seeing a lot of alumni that I've worked with over the years, that have worked with us, same companies. I know you want to come back, right? Why not? But seriously, we have wonderful drinks and snacks on our sunset balcony. The balcony has sunset as 1724. If you want to stay till then, you're welcome. The sunsets are the best in the industry. And yeah, so thank you guys. On behalf of MediaMarkt Digital, as you leave in the lift, there's all our brands you represent. That's a bit of selling you'll see over there. But yeah, let's do this again quite soon. Thank you guys. Cheers.
Okay, Raja says she wants the IAB to be an influencer, so please can you go to their LinkedIn platform, pop them a follow there. All the invites to future events, the Insight series that happens monthly, and all the other opportunities, especially if you've taken photos from today and you want to tag them in that content, try and summarize the learnings that you've got to share with the industry at large so that we can teach all of us, as we climb, they climb with us. Awesome. Thank you guys for coming out today. Enjoy the drinks and please network, network, network.
It really was an insightful event. The most important thing, which I think for me was key, is understanding how first-party data is affecting the industry.
The use of first-party data and integrating that into our business systems to make sure that we know our customer and we're able to give them personalized offerings.
It was a very engaging session and we learned a lot to help us, or rather to better equip us for the cookieless world, the various avenues that we can make use of contextual, social, demographic and other various forms of targeting.
Look out for me is really how do we understand in terms of one data point, in terms of having one customer data management platform for all various different data platforms that are out there, and how do we actually put it into one source of truth? And that's probably the holy grail for the future for us to understand how to engage with clients.